everyone. My name's Caroline Hildreth. I'm a principal from Netcompany, and I'm also a director of ITS UK. I've got the pleasure of hosting you for your final session today, which is all about industry growth. The global ITS sector is expected to grow by 7.7% in 2030. So what we're going to look at today is two parts, looking at, first of all, some of the UK's advantages that we can take to grow, to utilise the skills that our businesses have and the expertise that we've got on shore. And then we're going to be followed with a panel discussion looking at how we get more diversity within the ITS sector. So to start with, our keynote speaker is Darren Capes, who will be talking to us about how we can deliver a step change in traffic signals innovation.
Thank you, Caroline. Great to see so many of you still here at the end of the day. That's heartening to see. I'm not quite sure why everyone stood at the back there, but that's fine. Absolutely. So right, I've got 20 minutes really just to talk to you about a particular area of how we grow the sector, and that's around traffic signals funding. Like this morning, I've got no slides, just me talking for 20 minutes or 15 minutes and then some questions. But what I really want to focus on is some of the funding that government has been issuing recently to do with traffic signal maintenance and to do with traffic technology enhancement. And the reason I want to do this is, well, it's twofold really. Partly because I think it's a great opportunity to talk about how we are growing the sector. And I think it's also an opportunity for me to talk to some of you from local authorities and from the industrial sector within the room who hopefully might bid for some of the funding we have. So I want to spend a little bit of time just setting out our vision of where funding is going. So my name's Darren Capes. I'm the ITS policy lead in Department for Transport. So my area of expertise, theoretically, so I'm told, is around intelligent transport systems, particularly on the local road network. So particularly thinking about how the 156 local authorities that manage 98% of England's roads use ITS, use intelligent transport to deliver better services, to deliver the policies that their elected members want, to make transport better, more efficient, more reliable and safer, and all the other things that we want to do with transport. I also have some other hats which I think are quite useful here. I manage the Transport Technology Forum, which I hope many of you are aware of. I hope you understand what the TTF is. But I manage the TTF on behalf of Department for Transport and Innovate UK. And the reason I mention that is because the TTF is central to how we engage with local authorities in the sector around ITS. And it's something I will be talking about when I talk about some of the grants in a second. And the third hat I wear, which I'm very proud to wear, is I'm currently Junior Vice President of the Institute of Highway Engineers. And again, that's crucial because technology isn't going anywhere without people to install it, maintain it, design it, procure it, operate it. We need the right people in place. We need people with the right skills. We need people who have the right accreditation, who have access to the right kind of courses, the right kind of learning and development, because all those things are absolutely essential to ensure that we have a workforce that can support more technology, more use of technology. So wearing those three hats, I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing in Department for Transport at the moment. Now, back in October, Mark Harper, MP, the Secretary of State for Transport, announced the Plan for Drivers. And the aim of the Plan for Drivers was to try and deal with some of the endemic congestion we see on the transport network and try and make journeys more effective and more efficient. And you could say, well, actually, that's slightly problematic in why we're making it easier for people to drive. We should be thinking about cycling and walking and active travel, which of course we do. But Plan for Drivers wasn't really about that. It was about trying to deal with congestion to make the network more effective, which in itself makes the network more cost effective. It reduces air pollution and noise, and it enhances economic vitality by making access into cities and areas more effective. It increases access to the network for people living in rural areas and a whole range of other things you can achieve by making the road network operate more effectively. Now, Plan for Drivers included a lot of measures, and a lot of measures that tidied up the way that we enforce some of the features of the road, such as bus lanes and yellow boxes. The way that we manage roadworks on the network were part of that. But one of the key areas that we talked about in Plan for Drivers was enhancing traffic signal performance. And I was very fortunate to be able to secure £70 million worth of funding for traffic signals through that process, which in my experience, my experience is quite a long experience, is more than we've ever invested at any single time in traffic signal and traffic control technology in England. So it's quite a major feat, that. And we identified three themes that we wanted to deal with. We identified a theme around obsolescence. There's a lot of equipment on the network that is obsolete. We all know that. There are some big things coming down the track that we need to think about, such as the switching off of 2G and 3G phone networks, the switching off of the public switch telephone network, the PSTN network. All of these things affect how technology works. We need to think about the end of some technologies that we've been using for many years, such as the use of halogen bulbs, traditional lamps in controllers. Some of the technology we use to build controllers, some of the silicon technologies that we use are all end of life, and we need to quickly get those technologies off street if we want systems to keep working. So through something called the Traffic Signals Obsolescence Grant, we awarded £30 million to deal with that. We also awarded £20 million on top of that to deal with just the basic need to tune up traffic signals. And often you hear people saying, well, if we build a particular scheme in a city, we can reduce travel times or reduce congestion by 5% or something. And you think, as a signals engineer, you think, yeah, you could probably do better than that if you just tuned all the traffic signals. If you just made Scoot work or Mover work properly, you could probably do even better than that. So we set up a fund called the Green Light Fund, and that, again, had £20 million in it for local authorities to undertake work to make traffic signals better. Now, those funds opened in November and closed in December, and we've been assessing them, and we actually now, this week, in fact, yesterday, we now have a final list of the authorities that will be funded. About 80 authorities will receive funding through those two pots, through that £50 million combined pot, to go off over the next 2 years and just make things work better, make technology work better. And that's great, but it's very much, it is what it is. It's about maintenance, it's about maintenance, better handling of the technology we have, which is great. But it's the third fund, it's the Intelligent Traffic Management Fund, or ITMF, the last £20 million chunk of funding that we have that I really want to talk about, because that's the fund that really interests me. Because the point of ITMF is it allows us to start to think about the next generation of technologies. The technologies that we use to manage our traffic in cities now, the technologies that form the urban traffic control systems, the way that we optimize traffic at junctions and along corridors, the way that we deal with traffic on complex networks, has evolved from a base that started somewhere in the 1970s. And the technology that we use is very good. It's very good at what it does. It's very solid, it's very reliable, it does a great job. And I don't want to sound overly critical, but it's very traditional. We do things in very traditional ways. And you can understand why we do that, because we need systems that are reliable. We spend public money on these systems. Public money, that's my tax money. I want that spending wisely. So we do things the way we do. But there are lots of opportunities out there. There are lots of opportunities to think about the use of AI and machine learning, to think about the use of new data sources, to think about how we use technologies from other sectors, to think about what happens in other transport sectors, and even other sectors of engineering. What are they doing in terms of sensing, in terms of data, in terms of modelling, in terms of using high-speed computers, in terms of thinking about using digital twins, in terms of thinking about using quantum computing, all these possibilities that are either here now or not far away that could fundamentally change, could absolutely revolutionise the way we manage traffic on our networks. And incrementally moving towards that by incrementally upgrading the software that we use now isn't really a way to achieve that. That will allow us to continue doing the job now, but it won't be transformational. And we should be thinking about being transformational. So this is what ITMF is aiming to start to do. It's aiming to fund around 10, 12 maybe projects out of £20 million. Do the maths, that means probably somewhere around the order of £2 million per project. And that's quite a lot of money to spend on traffic control in a city. We want to fund that number of projects. And we want those projects to be beacons. We want to fund projects in cities led by local authorities that demonstrate change, that demonstrate the best of what's out there, the best of what's available now in the UK, the best of what the existing market players, and some of them are here, the likes of TRL and Unex and Swarco and Telent, that are already working in this sector and already developing technology. What's the best that they can provide? On top of that, what's the best that small and medium enterprises can provide? What's the best new technology, the best new thinking out there that's really struggling to find a foothold? What's the best thing that's happening around the world, around Europe? What's the best thing that's happening in other sectors that we could be bringing into this sector to help us meet this challenge? The ITMF funding is really to start 10 or 12 bright fires burning around the forest that show different types of technology dealing with local problems. And the reason for doing that is because local authorities have been very conservative with a small c, are always better at buying things they can see. And if we want to actually see technology move forward and develop, and we want to see new technologies used widely across the country, the best way to do that is establish some sites, to give people some money to go off, establish some sites, and use technology and allow people to come along, kick the tires, have a play with it, see how it works, and then maybe take it back to their own city, their own authority, and do something similar. So this is the way that we will move technology forward. So ITMF is about encouraging local authorities to form consortia, and those consortia should be a mixture of large companies, small companies, companies that are traditionally in the sector, companies that are outside the sector, companies that traditionally do traffic management and maybe others that don't, to look at systems that build upon what we have now. And that's fine, but we have to also remember that we're not building this in a green field. We're asking local authorities to take their transport systems and update them. Now, they have to do that on the network they already have. So there has to be an element of how do we move from where we are now to where the future is. What's that migration path? How do we move from the technologies that we all know and trust to new technologies? So ITMF will be very much about building on what we have, using the technology we have, using the understanding we have, but layering on new technologies, new systems, new ways of thinking, new ways of using data, all the possibilities. And the aim is that in 2.5 years' time, when these projects have matured and when the people have gone off and very wisely spent the money we've given them, we will have a whole range of systems out there working that allow us to pick and mix and think as a city, I like what they did, I like what they did, I like how they solved that problem. The whole point of the project is that those modules can be mixed in different ways so cities can build systems based on what they're seeing. And ultimately, we will hopefully end up with a transport technology world that has moved forward, that is using new technology, is thinking about things in new ways. And the Transport Technology Forum will be central to how we do this. So the TTF is, if any of you bid for the two funds that we're just awarding now, you will know that you bid through the TTF. You bid through the website of the TTF. That's where the online form was. That's where the guidance was. And I can tell you that the guidance for the next phase, the guidance for ITMF that explains some of the things I've been talking about, that tells you how to bid, tells you the types of aspiration we're looking for, that's also, as of this morning, now available on the TTF website. Now, as members of ITS UK, in the sector, I assume that you all have the URL of the TTF website burned onto the inside of your eyelids, because you should, because that's where you learn about what we're doing in government in this sector. It's where we share a lot of the information that a lot of the projects we do with ITS UK on that website. If you don't, go and Google Transport Technology Forum and you'll find it, and you'll find on that website a link to the guidance we've produced today. And when we actually open the bidding process in April, you will find that the bidding process again is hosted through that. Briefly thinking about the other hat that I wear, my IHE hat. Northerner coming out there, my IHE hat. Thinking about that, another benefit of this is it allows us to start to think about what training the engineers and technicians of tomorrow should look like. And we can stand here now and say, well, yeah, we have engineers and they're very good at fixing traffic signal controllers and doing works on the highway, and some of them are quite good with some of the new technologies like video sensing, and that's starting to appear. But really, are any of us ready for a traffic signal system that hosts a faster than real-time digital twin that uses AI to merge multiple data sources together at different times to generate a decision support model for how we manage traffic? Now, I don't think any of us really are. I'm certainly not. Organisations like the IHE will be central to how we understand and train what we need to do that, what the technicians and the engineers we need to work in this future. And none of this will work if we don't end up with the people out there that can actually maintain this stuff, the people out there that understand this. The real danger is that we end up with a situation where nobody knows what to buy, where the technology becomes too complex, too tricky, too risky, and nobody moves forward. And the way to understand that and get around that problem is to ensure that we have engineers out there, people specifying, people designing, people undertaking procurements, people building systems that know the potential of the technology and know how to use it efficiently. And that won't happen with an upskilled workforce. So that's something we need to do. So I think that's about 15 minutes, I hope. That's basically where we are. The challenge is there for us all. The challenge is there. We have money from government now, which we've never had before, and we may not get for quite some time again, to go off and try new technology, to try new solutions. I wouldn't like to advocate that anybody should use this money to fail, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have in this sector, as far as I can see, to have an opportunity to do stuff that might fail, to try stuff that is a little bit more risky, to try stuff that is a little bit further down the technology readiness order. It's research money that allows us to be a little bit more bold about the technology we use, in the hope that what we do will be successful and will drive us forward, but maybe it won't. But then again, even learning from things that don't work, there's lots of valuable learning you can get from that. So that's where we are. And the challenge really to the sector, to the public sector, is to think bold thoughts about how you want to manage traffic in your urban areas, in your cities, in your counties. Set some bold targets, set some bold vision for how you want road transport to work. The challenge to the private sector is to be ready for that. Be bold in the types of things you can offer. Think about collaboration. I know collaboration is a slightly scary term for companies. It means sharing your technology and maybe your secrets with others. But it's really important that we do. It's really important because the future will be a lot more collaborative than it is now. So it's really important that we collaborate and bring our technology together and think about it in that term, because that's how we will build systems that meet the challenges of tomorrow, and that's how we will deliver that. So on that note, I don't know whether we've got time for any questions or not. We do.
Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you see any synergies between sort of the traffic. Oh, thank you. Any synergy between the traffic management in urban areas and then with temporary traffic management? Do you think there's going to be any crossover with the technology that's used?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think we have to accept that temporary traffic management is actually traffic management. There isn't a city in England that doesn't currently have some temporary traffic management, some roadworks, some road closures. So that's just part of daily life. And actually, absolutely, work that's going on elsewhere in the department about building standards. One of the standards we're building is around digitising traffic regulation orders. That is partly so that we can build a digital understanding of what temporary works are happening. Building on from that, we're already seeing some technologies out there that allow temporary traffic signals to be connected to urban traffic control and do slightly more clever things than they traditionally could. That should all be part of it again. But again, if we move to a situation where a city has a digital twin, has a model, it should be able to model the effects of roadworks, and it should be able to work out the best way of dealing with them very quickly before they actually hit the ground. So yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it.
Aaron, sorry, following on from a similar theme from the previous question, what I've tend to find in the temporary sector is that the technology is available to be used, but due to not being specified, you tend to find a lot older systems are used in temporary works. Is there any plans to kind of try and push the use of innovation in temporary works?
I think the thing about maybe government, and maybe all of us really, is none of us really do anything until we have to do it, because it's just hard, and why would we bother? One of the things about ITMF is that might make some of these things happen, because if we can say, well, look, we've tried something, we've funded it, and it really works, but there are some issues about the technology that was used. It isn't approved, it isn't type-approved technology. Actually, government, really what you need to do is get on and deal with this, or we need the trade body to get on and deal with this. This might be the impetus to say, actually, the prize of doing this right is big, but we need to change some of the institutional things to make it work. So I don't think ITMF is just about proving the technology and just about stressing the technology envelope. It's about stressing the sort of legislative, administrative envelope as well, making people realise that there are big wins if we're just willing to actually do some work and do some difficult stuff. So yeah, I would absolutely hope that's part of it.
Any other questions for Darren? Oh,
One there and then one there, I think. So I'll take this from them, Peter. I'll take yours.
Right, Peter Richards, National Highways. Darren, we use this mover awful lot, and every time that the traffic signals are not optimum, I hear the same story about somebody's got to go out and tweak mover. Well, surely, when we look at all the data available, like floating vehicle data, we can look at traffic from miles around that junction. Why can't it be clever enough to go and tweak itself?
I think that's a question for the supply chain. Come on, why can't it be clever enough to tweak itself? Now, surely that's something that we should be able to do, and that's something lots of other sectors have done, is be able to say, we should be able, with the thing that we know we will have less of in the future, are people. That we know there will be less trained people. We know that people get more expensive to employ. It gets harder to stop them all going off to work designing video games or working for banks. We know that as a sector, we will have less people. So we should fill that gap with technology. We should make systems that are self-learning, systems that are able to self-tune. I'm no expert in this, but it doesn't seem impossible to be able to do that. I'm sure other sectors do. So I think you're right. I think, you think about the things that we would want to do with this fund, the things we want to do, and maybe one of the things is make systems a bit less reliant on having armies of technicians to go out and keep things optimized, because in the future, that's really not going to be that realistic a thing to hope for. So yeah, I would absolutely accept that's a challenge. I think, Peter, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Peter Lee from BSI. Will there be opportunities in the ITMF for capturing best practice and consensus so that other people can follow these 20 burning fires of excellence?
Well, there's a tagline for ITMF, straight right there. 20 burning fires of excellence. I think that really is fundamentally the one thing it needs to do, because £20 million isn't going to fix traffic management in England and make it totally up to date. It is only going to fund a number of beacon sites. Those beacon sites, the one thing they should do more than anything else is be beacon sites and show technology and how it can be used, and prompt the sector to think about what we should be doing, think about how we accredit and standardize things. They should be doing that. If we don't learn from that, if at the end of this we don't have information available through the TTF, we're not able to run events and talk about this and have places for people to go and look at stuff, then I think we've ultimately failed. What we end up with is 20 good sites that do nothing, and I think that's absolutely not the way. And to take a point from history, many of us are aware of UTMC. UTMC is a standard that's been around for nearly 25 years now, which is widely used in various forms to plumb roadside equipment and in-station equipment together and handle all that. And it's old now, it's old technology, but it's worked well and it still works well. The government originally funded 4 sites. There were 4 UTMC demonstrator sites in England, and they were paid for by government, and they were very cutting edge at the time. And that's from that sprang a whole sector, from that sprang a whole opportunity. Now one of my first jobs in ITS was actually project managing the very first of the demonstrators in York. And we had lots of people come to see us. We had lots of people come. We spent lots of time going to events. We spent lots of time talking about what we'd done and how it worked and what didn't work and what was good and what was bad. And that's exactly what I want to see ITMF do. If it follows that same model, then it's been a success.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren.
Thank you.
So Darren gave us a bit of a sneak peek into starting to consider how we're going to make sure that we've got the next generation of ITS professionals that can enter the industry and can make sure that we've got the diversity that's needed. So I'd like to invite my panel to the stage. Hope you're all here. Sit where you like. Okay, so we all know that building a diverse and inclusive organisation makes good business sense, as well as being the right thing to do. For the transport sector, that's especially true. Millions of people use transport every day, and we've got a responsibility to make sure that we reflect and understand their needs. We've got a huge and challenging task to deliver the transport system for the future, and we need to consider how we're going to support that next generation of intelligent transport professionals to enter the industry. So to start with, a bit of audience participation. Apologies, it's nothing strenuous, you've just got to lift your arm. So I'd be interested in your views as to whether or not you think, so please put your hand up if you agree, that the transport sector is diverse. Good answer. I mean, I think our panel, although we've got a mix of individuals, I think speaks volumes in that we haven't got a diverse panel today. Next, a bit more close to home, organisations. Do you think your organisations do enough to ensure a diverse and inclusive workplace? So if you agree, put your hands up. Interesting, thank you. So I'm really excited to be joined by our panel. All of these people play a really crucial part in creating a culture of diversity and inclusion within the transport sector. And I'm personally really excited to hear from you all. So if we could just start at the far end, James, have I got that right?
Yeah.
Perfect, good
Yeah.
start. If you could all do a 2-minute intro, that would be brilliant.
Yep, so I'm James Hornsby. I'm ITS UK's Early Careers Lead. My day job is a traffic signal engineer with Atkins Realis, and I also have a role with the Institute of Highway Engineer on their council. So yeah, I started my career, I guess, in the apprenticeship route, starting on a BTEC and working my way through to a degree, and that's where I think I sort of had the experience of the early careers route and how that currently, okay, it started 10 years ago, so maybe it's changed within that 10 years, but wanted to use my experience of that process and help the industry build more on top of that.
Steve?
Yeah, my name's Steve Spender. I'm Chief Executive of the Institute of Highway Engineers. It seems that since Darren came on stage, we're taking over. But my role is to obviously run the Institute, but part of my role that I enjoy is going out there and seeing how we can generate membership and seeing how we can generate membership across the range of the device range that you're looking for. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. Even within our own organisation, there's only 14.8% of our membership are women. The good news there is that 50% of our presidential team, as from June, will be women. So I mean, and that's 2 out of 4. So we are, you know, particularly in terms of women, we are trying to increase it, but we aren't doing enough. We're negative about what we do. We just almost go around and hope that it falls into our laps the right way, if I'm honest with you. And I don't think that's enough. I think we need to be proactive. We are starting work, as from this year, with Engineering UK about how they can support us in terms of making sure that we've got a more diverse range of people that are coming into engineering. And that's not just within IT. That's across the whole sector of civil engineering. And we're looking forward to that because that's going to bring us some challenges. And that's something that the Engineering Council are driving hard at to make sure that they improve that. So, I mean, hopefully, you know, if we can move time forward for a year, I can come back and give you the good news of how that's working and how that's going forward. Interestingly, when I go around to universities, yeah, there's a good range of ethnic students that are actually on the course, really, really good range. But when we translate that into industry, what they do is they do come over, they do gain their degrees and tend to take those degrees back home again, where they're working then towards what we would hope that we would encourage them for professional registration. But I've got to say from personal experience, when I've reviewed for professional reviews, ladies against gentlemen, the ladies come out far better. And that's a real surprise. I mean, that, you know, you can see from the amount of women that have been in the room today, that have spoken today, that have taken part in this today. You know, why have I only got 14.8% of my membership that's women when I look at the talent that's out there? And that's just one element of what we're talking about.
Well, hopefully you can get some more tips today. So we'll move on
Hopefully I will.
Joanna.
Hi, yes, I'm Joanna Hill. I am an engagement specialist. I'm the Northwest Regional Lead with Women in Transport, which is a not-for-profit organisation that empowers women working in the transport sector. So as the Northwest Regional Lead, I'm working with a team of volunteers to bring events and development opportunities to women in the northwest of the UK, and trying to create really empowering, enriching spaces where we can share our experiences, support each other, mentor each other, and just promote each other, really. I am currently working as the Marketing Communications Manager with HW Martin Traffic Management. It's in the highways sector as well.
Thank you. Gemma?
Yep, hi, I'm Gemma Treadwell. So I'm an Associate Technical Director at Arcadis. I've worked in ITS for over 15 years now. And I also chair the Women in ITS UK Forum, and I've been doing that for just over 6 years, which has opened up a lot of opportunity for me personally. So thanks ITS UK, and that's why I'm here. So that's a bonus. And just to speak on the point, I manage the resource for the ITS team within Arcadis. And I think we have made progress. I look around and I look at our team, and I think we're doing quite well in the kind of balance of the team. But what is clear to me is there's a lot more to do. And within the role, within sort of the Women in ITS group, we've taken a little bit of a step back and look at our objectives this year. So Women in ITS has been really positive, and we've had really good feedback, and it's been a really nice, safe space for people to be able to come and talk and hopefully build a bit of confidence before they end up in a situation like this. But there's also, there's other groups that we need to speak to within the ITS industry. So this year we're taking a look at sort of the 9 protected groups and how we can help ITS UK involve those more. We probably don't need a separate group for each one, but there's definitely a place, I think, that we can encourage and support people in the ITS industry. So, and I'm hopefully in a room of people who are very bright and very clever, and on a panel of very bright and clever people. So I'm hoping that you're all going to come back with some great ideas. So, thanks.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, one way to introduce me, I'm not sure, I'll try and be bright and clever. So I'm Scott Heath, I'm from Thales Transportation, based down in London, although originally from the Northwest. You may get a few hints of it in my accent. My day job is innovation lead, so I look after our R&D and our sort of new kind of products kind of side of the business, but my gay job is I'm the head of our LGBT group. So I do a lot of time talking about diversity and inclusion and how we bring more LGBT people to our sector and to our organisation. Happy to pass on.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. So my name is Louise Cheeseman. I'm very lucky to say that I recently retired from Transport for London as Director of Bus. But during my time in Transport for London, I joined in 2021 and inherited a horrendous problem with bus driver shortages. When we started to really crunch the data, found that only 9% of bus drivers in London out of 26,500 were women. So we really started to look at that as a real opportunity to try and identify women into the role within bus generally and coach. And so from that, I founded Women in Bus and Coach, which since retiring I've continued to chair, and it has really grown quite dramatically in terms of the take-up we've had from women. We are talking to specifically people like bus manufacturers to look at the design of the cabs, talking to operators about things like rostering, but really going out there and really challenging the industry to try and understand what it is that is causing women not to really be interested or apply within the bus and coach sector. My career, I joined the transport industry in 2001 as one of very few female guards at a train depot, and in 2017 became the only female train managing director of a rail operating company. So I know what it feels like personally to be in the minority in a very male-dominated industry, and I've used some of that experience to go into schools and colleges. When I left Hull Trains as managing director, 55% of our train drivers were women. And very proud of that statistic. So I'm going to carry on and try and really promote transport as an industry for women.
I think it's fantastic that all of you are involved in D&I initiatives where you've got a day job at the same time. To find the space to do that's really good. So how do you stay motivated to be an advocate for change? We start with James, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's inbuilt into our day jobs as well as my sort of external roles, and allowing the time to have those external roles is sort of a key part, and having the support from my company. I guess for my role with sort of the early career side of it, it's about seeing the next generation come through and where that generation comes from. You know, it's not a silo of one particular group. We need to create a diverse workforce from that. And that's by going in and creating more opportunities at not just sort of like university level, but we need to think about the levels before that to encourage people from different backgrounds and the 9 protected elements of diversity. So just seeing that development is what sort of keeps me motivated.
Has anybody else got any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, if I may jump in. I think it's just because it's really important. Our industry, our customers are so diverse, and as an industry, to bring value to those people, we need to reflect that in what we do. I think there are so many opportunities in the transport sector, whether you are transport like frontline or whether you're non-transport facing in a role like engagement like myself. There's such a scope, and I think the industry has the potential to be incredible and really diverse. And I think for me, it's about constantly driving it forward to become the space that I think it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, Louise.
So I think there's an awful lot of talent out there that isn't tapped. I think that there are a lot of women, and I'm talking about women here now, but I know there are a lot of people who have commitments at home, but making the working environment suitable for everybody, whether that's part-time or full-time. To see some women, like myself, for example, I was a single mum, came into the rail industry as a guard just because I needed money to pay the bills. But I always say if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I think there's a lot of women out there who, just given a little bit of support and having role models out there that can mentor them, we could really change the dynamic within the transport industry. And it has to replicate our customer base as well. I think that is so important.
Yeah, so I think from my side that there's two sort of motivators. The first, with my innovation hat on, I look at people who we say they've changed or revolutionized an industry, and I never look at one of them and think, you are normal. You're always a little bit different, something cut against the mold. You've gone into your organization, you've done something a little bit different, and you've thought a little bit differently, and you've created that step change. And so I want to provide a place where those people who are a little bit different can come in, be their real selves, and provide those ideas and hopefully encourage us and help us move into a direction that improves things so we deliver better services for our ultimate customers. So that's number one. And then number two, it's the stories. We start changing our organizations to bring new people in, but also we retain people and we allow those people to become their true selves. And when you sit down with somebody who's finally been able to sort of socially transition in their workplace, they can finally be the person they are, but they can be their true self. And they can sit there and go, I'm finally who I've always been, but I'm now finally who I am amongst my colleagues. It can be really moving. And that's what I want to bring. I want to make my workplace somewhere where everyone is happy, comfortable, can perform. And when I sit back and go home, I go, yeah, I'm working for a great company. And I want other people to then look at our company and go, I want to work for them.
That's a fantastic answer, and it actually leads us on really nicely. So it's really important, obviously, to have integrity, transparency, and honesty in that workplace, and for you to bring your whole self to work. How do you think industry leaders can set an example about inclusive leadership? Gemma?
So that's a really good question. Well, firstly, I don't think we're quite there yet. I think there's a lot of work to do. I think some of the things that we can do is events like this. This is really important, and it's really nice to have a panel where we're all sort of on the same page. But we are all on the same page, so that's quite nice, isn't it? Great, well done. So we need to work on, how we're perceived in our leadership positions, and also how we influence people who are leading us. And one of the things that I heard in another conference that sort of stood out to me was mentoring from the bottom up. So I've had some great mentors, but they've all been people above me, which is really useful, but I can't really understand, and I wouldn't ever claim to understand everyone's perspective, and the wider perspective you can get, and that needs to come from the bottom up as well, will help you understand what those challenges are. Like, I don't understand, what your challenges are at work every day. I couldn't speak to a lot of you in this room, but I'm pretty sure I could have a conversation with you, and probably after 5 or 10 minutes, we'd probably understand and be on the same page. But if we don't have these conversations, and we're not willing to have these conversations, then we can't understand what good looks like. And just the other thing I'd say on that is document what that is, because it's all very, like, we have these great ideas and we have these talks. Yeah, brilliant, we're going to go away. But if we don't document or kind of acknowledge when something's gone well as something's not gone well, then we're never going to be able to build on that. So those would be my two points.
From my perspective, is it not incumbent upon us as leaders, if we're leaders in industry, then part of that leadership in industry is to encourage as wide a range as possible. Everybody should be included in the opportunities that I've had and others have. I'm fortunate because it's not just an organisation. I actually see people. We've got 3,500 members, and you see that membership come through. You see that membership grow. But it's incumbent upon me as chief exec to ensure that we are open as wide as possible to anybody that wants to actually come along and go through our membership, go through our registration, become qualified, and become respected and build themselves into the leaders in our sector. I take that to heart. That's part and parcel of my job role. That's one of the key ones. Let's make sure that where we've talked about, and we've been talking about how we support the sector across the board. From my knowledge, 20 years ago, I was sitting on panels that were talking about how we make sure that we reskill and we skill up for what's coming in the future. Now is the time to do it. Really, now is the time to do it because things are changing. There's so much opportunity about now. There's resources becoming available to do it. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're as open, and we're as open in ourselves and with the people that we're working with to make sure that we can support them coming in to the industry and going forward.
I think as well, it's amazing that you feel you can do that. I think for some people, they find that quite difficult. In traffic management, for example, we tend to promote upwards from people who've been really good at delivering the operational side, delivering their sort of the real hard skill stuff. The people management side of things is almost a bit of an afterthought. So I think something that we need to do to enable that is, and the stuff that Gemma was talking about, is making sure that we institutionalize inclusive leadership training, people training, creating safe spaces, facilitation, because without these things, yes, doing that sort of 360 or mentoring upwards, if you've not created that safe space where giving that feedback is going to be received well, but you feel like you can actually do it, it's not going to happen. So I think as well it's creating the skill sets that perhaps are overlooked sort of day to day.
I also think we need brave leadership that's prepared to go out into the field and talk to the people in the businesses. When I first joined TfL, going out and talking to the people in the garages and in the bus stations, asking them how they felt, that whether their facilities met their needs, whether the uniform was suitable for a lady going through the menopause, asking some really challenging questions and being prepared to stand and listen to those answers and actually doing something about it, because there's nothing worse than having staff surveys and doing all what appeals to be the good stuff, but actually seeing no difference. And I know it can be the really simple things as well that makes that environment a lot easier and a lot more inviting for people from every creed and colour we have. And as I say, I think having a leadership team that are prepared to go out there and see their people in their workplace and really ask those challenging questions, I think is the starting point. Let's get the basics right first.
It's clear that everybody plays a part in D&I. So how do you think that allies can support the D&I agenda? We go to James.
I think it is by making it public. So, it's all good saying to us sitting up at the panel talking to each other saying, we all agree, we all think this is great. But then if we don't have an event like this where we're talking to everyone here, it doesn't get outside of this room. I think we've all talked about how important it is at leadership level, but it's all about making it obvious, getting the conversation going, not doing it because it's an objective set in your career appraisal that you need to do one meeting to do with ED&I. It's it needs to be something believed in and followed up upon.
But it needs to be obvious in the workplace, though, doesn't it? It needs to be obvious for those people that you're working with or brushing shoulders with. It's not just about something that you talk about at an event like this. It needs to be something that you can take back, that somebody can say, yes, I recognise that. Yes, I get that support there. Yes, it's obvious to me that they're going the extra mile to try and make sure that everything that I need in the workplace for me to be happy, to content, for me to work at my best is obvious to me when I'm in the workplace.
I've just come back on that. I mean, really good examples up here of, you know, we're still not in a diverse work group, are we? So if we don't have alliedship, then we're a bit stuck, aren't we?
Yeah.
And you can see, like, it works. Like, you'll get sort of positive feedback. I mean, I've had some really good allies within my career. In fact, I'd struggled to find one that I hadn't. So the help is out there, and the allies are out there. And you know, as I said, we're not in that diverse place yet. So I think alliedship plays a massive role in the situation we are at the moment, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to work with that, and embrace it. And just back to your point, I think, you know, it's really difficult, but you have to go. You're right. You have to go and ask these difficult questions, and it's hard, isn't it? Because you don't want feedback that's negative. You want everyone to say, "Yeah, you're great. What you're doing is bang on." But it's not all the time, is it? So I think you have to feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and that's a skill in its own, isn't it? So I think, yeah, alliedship's pretty key for me, anyway.
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing allies can do is understand the role that they can play in improving the diversity in the organisation they're in, and almost all of us have a way in which we can do that. If you're doing recruitment, you can sit down, look at the job description and say, are these requirements truly necessary? And am I excluding people from applying for this job because I've written something in here that isn't really necessary? Do I need 10 years experience? Do I really need them to know this obscure computer language that hasn't been used in 15 years, but by putting it in there, I know that I'm getting a very small group of individuals going to apply for this job. And you can sit back and ask those questions. You can enter a room and say, why are there no women in this room? And just raise the question. And equally, for somebody from a protected group, you can have a conversation with me about my group and not be worried and actually kind of probe. What's it like to live in a household same-sex couple? What was COVID like for you? There's lots of interesting questions and things about our lives, and people can sometimes scared, you know, the cancelling fear. We're usually quite open to having a conversation as long as we know that the conversation isn't coming from a place of malice. And, you know, just be prepared to have a chat, get to know what our lives are like a bit, and then maybe that can help you in the future when you sit in the room and go, yeah, Steve's also got a boyfriend. I remember that story. What was this like for you? Just be inquisitive. Don't be scared, I think is the main thing.
Yeah, building relationships and rapport.
Yeah.
So we all know that organisations like to track what they do and progress. You know, it's the gold star because they've seen a number shift. So what metrics do you think that organisations really should be using to measure diversity progress? We'll start with you, Scott.
Of course. Retention is number one, because it's great to be like, I'm hiring really well, I'm getting all of these diverse individuals in, but if they're instantly leaving your organisation, you haven't fixed the problem. All you've done is tailor your numbers in a good way to make yourself feel good. So retention, absolutely number one. I'd look at the opportunities you give to your less senior employees. So it's good we get these kind of talking opportunities. I get invited to all sorts of events. I always make sure that I bring a more junior employee with me so that they're getting exposure, they're building the networks. If I'm going to arrange a workshop, I have a think, is there a diversity group missing here? Can I try and invite some people along just to bring a different view? Those are things you can measure, but they're much more interesting to measure than the absolute number of what percentage of our workforce is female. Also then delve into those statistics and see where people are, because you end up with pockets. There's a lot of gay men in transport. A lot of them are in service roles. So why aren't there as many of us in the office space? And what can we do to bring more in? And those kind of things as well. So actually start delving a layer underneath the statistics and really understand. And then the last part is also bring the data to the region and the area, because it's one thing to say there's not many people of Indian origin working in our office in Aberdeen, but are there that many in Aberdeen? And actually, do you have a reflective representation of the community of the place? And actually, are you starting to do an initiative that's irrelevant because it's reflective of the community, and actually bring your data to that level? Because as soon as we start going national, you might start thinking things are okay or pushing too hard in a space that's not a problem area. So start thinking on those regional elements too.
I think looking at recruitment from from the very beginning, looking at how many people actually want to, if you talk about the bus and coach industry, for example, how many people actually want to join that industry, and what impression do they have of that industry, and if those numbers aren't starting to rise, why aren't they starting to rise? I absolutely agree with what you said, because one of the issues we've got in the bus and coach sector at the minute is applications are starting to go up, and we have some fantastic campaigns to attract women into bus and coach. Go North East and Go North West have got a fantastic recruitment campaign at the minute, which you've probably seen on LinkedIn. Really great, exciting. But once they get in there, is it what they expect? Is it how it's been sold? And I think what they're finding is, unfortunately, it's not, particularly with things like welfare facilities, toilet facilities, uniforms, blah, blah. Could go on. I could talk forever on the subject. But we need to make the industry attractive to people coming in at all ages, men, women, gay, straight, black, white, whatever they are. It's just about making that industry exciting and interesting and appealing for them. So I'd like to see just generally the sort of statistics on people actually applying to the industry going up, certainly for women in bus and coach.
I think for me, it's going beyond the statistics. So yeah, we have oodles of data. What do we actually do about that then? I mean, if you look at the sort of gender pay gap information, we've been collecting that for years now. There's loads of information out there, and it's going to take us 50 years by the current measurements to actually close that gap if we carry on as we are. So it's what organisations then do to combat that. So what's the next step now that you've got this data? How are you going to close the gap? What are you going to do about that? And we're talking about people leaving the industry, and some statistics that National Highways did quite recently was that marginalised groups across everything from women to mothers to people with religions, LGBT, all of these things, they're leaving faster than they're actually joining, and they're only staying in the industry for about 10 years before they're then leaving because of the lack of opportunity, the bias they experience, things like that. So again, so we have our retention statistics, or we have this, that, and the other. What are we actually going to do about it? What's the why? Why are we collecting this data?
Yes, it's making sure that you make use of whatever data you collect as part and parcel of your everyday. But it should be sometimes it should be more than that. Mm-hmm. And that's why we are undertaking this year the task of working with, as I say, with the Engineering Council, because there's a recognition now that that anybody that comes into the sector that's looking for professional registration, that's looking to work their way through. The Engineering Council need to know, and they've talked to us about that, about how they can now support all of the PEIs, about how they would do that. How those engineering institutions will collect data that's necessary. But it's not just a matter of holding it; it's a matter of then using it, sharing it with others, working with others to find out how you can improve. And that gives me some heart, because the work that we'll be doing, we'll be working with 43 other or 42 other institutions that are going to say, well, we've tried this or we've tried that. So it's that will give me, some ideas of how we can take that forward, and I can feed into that program.
We've obviously made some really good progress over the years, but obviously there's a lot more to do. So for anyone that's in the audience that perhaps wants to be a D&I advocate but aren't sure where to start, do you have any, if we could just do one tip from each of you, and then we'll go to the floor for some questions.
I'd ask the question of the organisation that you work for. Is there a role that you can play? Is there a role that you can play in your own organisation to be an advocate? And if so, how are they going to assist you? How will your organisation, your leadership team, assist you in taking that forward? I mean, you need to have that buy-in from your leadership team.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, but I guess the general networks, so not just your own company, but wider networks, investigate who you can talk to, where you can sort of go to find relevant information that you want to then explore further and have an impact in.
For me, it's self-reflection. Figure out the spaces where you have your own bias, where you've got your blinkers on. We've all got them. And see how you can role model the behaviours that you want to see in other people.
I mean, my advice would be, and it doesn't just apply to this, but put your hand up, say you're interested, be curious, find out what is in your own organisation, and as you guys say, other organisations. If you put your hand up and say you're willing to help, trust me, someone will bite your hand off. I mean, we're crying out for people to help in all different aspects of this. So I would just say, put your hand up.
Yeah, I would say all of that. And whatever you do, make it fun. No one likes the person sitting in the office, sitting there moaning and saying, we've got 65 problems. You can always spin this, and this is the innovator in me. You can always spin this to something fun, make it fun. And then more people are likely to listen to you and participate. But if it's you ranting in the corner on your soapbox, eventually some people will listen, but a lot of people will be just switched off because they're just not going to want to participate with you.
And I think instigate conversation. Don't be afraid in the workplace to start having conversations, whether it's over the coffee machine or whether it's just generally in the office or whether it's in the mess room or wherever it might be at whatever level. Just start that conversation and see how it grows. And I'd be very worried if an organisation, that conversation didn't build and somebody either pointed you in the right direction, and if they didn't, then do something about it. Be the one to put your hand up and instigate and some sort of group that can start making a difference.
Brilliant. So we're now going to open up to the floor if anybody has any questions for our panel.
Stereo. Just going back to what I was sort of rambling on about earlier, we obviously will see a great use of technology and different technologies in the sector, and that will require us to bring a more diverse set of skills and disciplines into the sector to deliver that. How do we use that as an agent for change in terms of also diversifying the workforce and actually making transport attractive to a more diverse workforce that traditionally may have seen it as being a bit sort of steel toe cap boots and high vis? How do we make it attractive to a wider group of people?
You've got a choice between the two of us.
Okay, so I was very lucky a few months ago to be asked to open Brixton Bus Garage. It was an old tram shed, and Arriva Bus Group had converted it into a fully electric bus garage. And the one thing that struck me when I was asked to open it was it did not resemble an old bus garage at all. The floors were clean. There weren't pools of diesel oil. Instead, there were banks of computers where you would be plugging electric buses in to be charged up. And I said to Arriva at the time, goodness, go out there, take photographs, show people what the bus industry now looks like and what modern technology can give us, and that actually the skills in buses is changing radically. So if you go out into schools and colleges, tell people, show them those photographs of what the art of the possible is, and that the skill set needed now within the bus industry and the coach industry with decarbonisation, electrification is totally different now, and something that will wet the juices of people. It was littered with young people in hoodies and trainers and pressing lots of buttons. That would have been unheard of in 10, 15 years ago, and it's fantastic to see, to be honest. It's very, very exciting.
Isn't that a challenge that we've faced for many years, though, Darren? It's a change of, would you rather be somewhere where you're sitting with an electronic panel and you're working away on a computer, or would you rather be out in the freezing cold on a December morning in a yellow jacket? My choice was to be outside in a yellow jacket. But we have now the opportunity to make sure that some of those that are coming up through the ranks, through the universities, through training schemes, through apprenticeships, are aware that there is far more to it than that. It's now about training people in that IT side of things. And they will see that. They will see that as something that they can get involved with. And once they get involved with it, they'll see the benefits of it, but they'll also see what they're adding to our network, to society and to the rest of it in terms of what they can actually deliver and what they can help us deliver. And it will grow. With the right training, with the right support, we can actually make it far more of an attractive side of our sector than we've had for a long time. and now's the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, personally, I think apprenticeships are key here. We know that higher education has a big problem with socioeconomics, and it does provide a big barrier. Even if they tell us that they're being diverse, they're not. Whereas the apprenticeship schemes can offer real hands-on training and opportunities for people to get into a business, and it opens the door for some of that socioeconomic diversity. Certainly thinking about the role of work, changing it, challenging it, job share, all sorts of fun, exciting things you can do in that space as well, can potentially attract more people. We have to understand that potentially our sector isn't the most exciting, so offering secondments for people so they can do their 6 months of really interesting work on a data set or developing an algorithm and then can hop over and do the same thing in aerospace or wherever. And having that flexibility can be really helpful. I think the 10, 20, 30-year career is dead, so we can also make that a little bit easier for people. And I'd also kind of say as well, there's a lot we can do in terms of just showcasing what we do as an industry and actually really kind of making it clear to people it's not what they used to think it was. We can bring more people in for school days, you know, the work opportunities. We can do sandwiches. We can work with universities more so that they can bring people to our industry. And there's so much we can do. That's the main thing. There's lots of opportunity. And again, the innovator in me, there's so much opportunity here.
I'm afraid we haven't got any more time for questions, but a shameless plug that if you are interested in learning more or want to connect, we've obviously got the Women in ITS Forum, and we've got the Early Careers ITS Forum as well. It'd be remiss of me to not mention as well Women in Transport and Women in Bus and Coach, so feel free to reach out to our speakers who can offer you more information. So lastly, just to thank the panel for their contributions and insight into how we can bring diversity and inclusion into the transport industry.
So that is it for today's conference and our first annual conference in recent years. A few things to say from my behalf. I'm aware I'm standing between you and a drink downstairs. First and foremost, thank yous. So a big thank you to AWS for supporting today and for Interchange for providing us with all the support and everything that we needed to do this conference today. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of the chairs and everyone from the ITS UK board who've been involved in today. So Stuart, Ryan, Mark, Catherine, Caroline, we really couldn't have done it without you, so thank you very much. And a big thank you to the ITS UK team, particularly Rukshan and Priscilla, who've been here today, handing out microphones to people, juggling everything. Been absolutely fantastic, so really, really appreciated. And actually, can we give them everyone a round of applause there as well? I hope you've enjoyed it. I found it absolutely fascinating. And I'm not going to go through everything, but I think we've seen in those 4 key areas of connectivity and autonomy, integration, sustainability as society, and then finally on industry growth, just how much is going on across the ITS sector, just what role technology is playing in all parts of the transport system, in all modes, in all parts of the UK. We've had pretty much discussion across all different areas of the UK, as well as different modes. And it's been really fascinating to see, the challenges, but also the huge opportunities and some of the case studies that the speakers have presented about what technology can do. And I think there's a really exciting future here for this industry. I do want to highlight, I think there was an announcement there in Darren about the ITMF guidance and funding, which is really positive. So I'm sure that there'll be a link sent round, or we can help share that if needed. And what I'd also say is we don't want the conversation to stop here. So obviously that today is the conference. We won't be here tomorrow. There will be, I think, a conference in this room on placemaking, but it won't be us. But that doesn't mean the conversation has to stop. We've got 15 forums across ITS UK. We've got a huge number of events coming up, and we're looking at our AGM, the Intelligent Transport Address, as the next big event in May. really do come and get involved with all of those. There's a huge number of opportunities to engage with. We're here tomorrow. We'll be in L4, the lounge area. So do come and grab me, Rukshan, or Priscilla, and come and have a chat about how you can get involved. So that's it from me. The one final thing is for chairs and for the team, if you can come up, we're going to have a team photo at the end. But I hope you enjoy the rest of Interchange. Oh, and there's drinks downstairs with Andy Burnham, so do go and head to that too. So thank you very much, and have a good day.